All right, good morning, and thank you for attending. One thing that Lauren didn't mention is to make sure that you put your name and company in the chat so that you get credit for attending the training as well. So we'll get started. So this is Enhancing Mobility Through Technology. And I'm just going to go over a few of the ways that we manage our fleet. So maybe there's some information that is there that you might find helpful or useful. I will try to answer the questions as best I can. I am filling in for our mobility manager right now, so I hope to do an amazing job for you guys. Next slide, please. So a couple of things that we're going to talk about is it's a computerized maintenance management software, but it's CMMS. So we also refer to it as our FIX system, which is FIIX. We use GPS, and we also utilize Outlook calendars for vehicle scheduling and dispatching. Next slide. All right. So we're going to do a couple of poll questions. So the first poll is, does your organization use any software at this point for scheduling, dispatching, or fleet maintenance?
And Dawn, I'm having issues with the polling questions. So if you could just put them into the chat. I've been trying to figure this out since yesterday. So if you could put your answers in the chat, I will manually take note of those.
No worries. Okay. So we have a couple yeses already. Yes. Excellent. All right, well, let's go to the next slide. Another poll question, does your organization use any type of vehicle tracking system?
We've got a couple of yeses already so far.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, and then let's go to the next slide. One more poll question. How many vehicles does your organization currently have in their fleet?
50 plus.
Okay.
4. 7.
Excellent. All right. That just gives a good idea of the different size of fleets. All right. Well, let's go to the next slide. All right. So we're going to dive into our computerized maintenance management software, CMMS. Next slide. So we use this system not only for our fleet, but we also use it for other assets such as our group homes, and any equipment we have in the group homes, like our refrigerators and other appliances. But what's great about this is every asset has its own pocket in it, and you can upload things like pictures and receipts and quotes, and so everything's kept in one place. And then you can go in and you can print things out as you need. You can also track to see if maybe you have a vehicle and you're like, gosh, I feel like we just replaced tires on that vehicle. And so you can go back and look and see when you replaced them in a very easy way. And then you can look to see if it's something that's been repetitive and maybe there's an issue with the tires or the vehicle itself. And so you can kind of gather that information and see that quicker versus waiting until the issue becomes so severe that it's going to cost a lot more in the future to take care of. Next slide. Everything can be customized, which is great. And then like our vehicles are all different, and so we use them for different ways. We have an admin vehicle that we use strictly just for our administration that are going to meetings or running errands, all the way up to the vehicles that we utilize to transport all of our supported individuals. And so we're able to individualize the asset within the system as well. Next slide. One of the really nice things about our system is that we can create reminders. And so it helps us to plan ahead. So TCH has a large fleet of vehicles. We have 11 group homes within the area. And so some of our vehicles are housed at those group homes. And so we don't necessarily see them every day. And this allows us to schedule their maintenance and then prepare knowing, okay, the vehicle from this group home needs to go in for maintenance. So they won't have a vehicle for a day or two. So we need to find another vehicle within the fleet. And so we can then move the fleet around so that we're utilizing it very effectively. But it also helps us plan ahead. And that way we're not behind schedule when it comes to the manufacturer's warranty maintenance or other like our regular oil changes and things like that. Next slide. So as I stated, it really helps with the scheduling and the dispatching. One of the things that is really nice, if you are a 5310 recipient, we have a great opportunity with this. So we're all required to do our annual inspections. We can put reminders in if the vehicles are done at varied times throughout the year as just a reminder to, hey, we need to do that annual inspection in April. So that gives us time to get it scheduled and make sure that we're following through with those requirements and expectations. Next slide. So again, just talking about how we were able to really get everything in line so that we're meeting all of the manufacturer's warranties as well as regular oil changes. It could be regular lift inspections, those kinds of things, so that the vehicles are safe and operating as high as efficiency as possible. And one of the things that we also can do is our team members, our drivers, are able to put in tickets. So if they're driving a vehicle and it's not operating in the best way, it could be, maybe it's out of windshield wiper fluid. They can put a ticket in as well as let the team know, but they can put a ticket in so that way we're able to track what work has been done or what issues may be arising with the vehicle and how often. So that's been really, really helpful. Next slide. So I talked about how they're stationed at remote locations, and it helps us to schedule them in a way that we're not scrambling at the last minute to be like, oh my gosh, where's this vehicle going to go? Well, who's going to take this? So it's very helpful to have all of that scheduled in one place. Next slide. So this just gives you a little bit of an idea of what our system looks like. It's one of the things that shows very detailed what the notification is on our end, as well as what we can put in there. So you can see the different ways that you can put it in. It could be daily, weekly, monthly. So we can schedule things. If we know that we have a quarterly maintenance, we can schedule it so it pops up every quarter. Next slide. So we do pay for it. And we utilize it, as I stated, we utilize this between our fleet as well as our group home assets. And then our IT department also utilizes it. So we're able to kind of split the cost between the three departments, and IT utilizes it. So if you have a computer issue, you can put a ticket in to this system and it goes directly to the IT team, where the fleet and facilities goes to that team. So it's not like everybody gets every ticket. And so that way, then it's easy for them to say, oh, this is what needs to be done. And then in the system, it also tracks where the status is. So if it's been completed, you mark it completed. If it's in process, or if there's some issue. And as people putting the information in, if it's something that's high priority, it lets you prioritize it based on the user need. So if I'm having an issue with something, I can say it needs to be resolved in 24 hours or up to 5 days, or it's just kind of more of a project that's on the back burner that we can get to when we get to. And so it helps that we can put the details in of what our expectations are within that fixed system too. Next slide. Again, we can add notes. We monitor like where is something, so we can look at the date that something was input, And if it's been in there for several months and it's still in progress, but nothing's being done to it, it's like, why? So we need to have notes. We can put information in there. We can run reports based on a variety of different quantifiers. So if you're looking at how many tickets have been in there for 3 months, you could run it by date, or you can run it by the in progress. So there's a variety of ways to run reports as well, so that you can make sure that you're managing all of your assets in a very easy way. Next slide. So this just gives you an idea of the dashboard. And this includes fleet and facility. So they go together because they fall into one department. And so on here, you can kind of see that some of it's for the washing machine, but then you see van 164, the AC stopped blowing. And so it had to take care of, and when this, at the time that this was done, it was within the time frame in the day that it had been put in. So it shows all of the information. And of course, under there, when you look at the priority, so van 164 AC stop blowing, that's critical because obviously we can't have our vehicles driving our supported individuals without AC in the summertime. So it just gives you a really good snapshot of what it is that we're doing. So you see lube, oil, and filter down towards the middle to end of the sheet, and it tells you which vehicle it is. And then on the type, it says it's preventative. So we know that this is preventative maintenance. And again, we can run reports based on those items as well. So if you're, maybe you need to say, what preventative work did we do in the last month? You can run a report and gather all of that information. Next slide. Does anybody have any questions about the system, the asset system that we work with at this point in time? If not, if you come up with something later, no problem. Okay, so GPS systems. I'm not sure how many of you use some sort of GPS system. There's a couple of different ones out there. So we'll go ahead and hop into the next slide. So we have a large enough fleet that we utilize a GPS system. Not only do we have a fleet of vehicles within the Maricopa County, like Tempe, East Valley is where the majority of our vehicles are. We have vehicles at Luke Air Force Base. We have vehicles at Fort Huachuca. We have vehicles in Yuma, and we have vehicles in Tucson. So we want to be able to track as much as possible, much information as we can, utilizing our GPS system. And it has been very beneficial for us. Next slide. So most people know that, the GPS systems, you're looking at speed, location, idle time, all of those kinds of things. And so it's good to be able to look at some of that information, especially when we're talking about our disability providers and limited funding that we have. So we want to know, like, is somebody idling and how long are we idling? And then we can look into why are we idling for so long? And is it something that's reoccurring every day at the same place? So it's really nice because then we can start to take a look at, are we being as effective and efficient as we should be within our fleet? Next slide. It also lets us know where our vehicles are, of course. So this gives you just a snapshot of a couple of vehicles that we had out on the road at one time and where they were located. Next slide. Again, another just snapshot of where it was going, and then it also gives names of who's the driver is at that point in time, which is great because if there's an issue and we have a breakdown, which happens once in a while. Not too long ago, we had a vehicle breakdown on the side of the road, and they had an idea where they were, but they weren't sure exactly where they were. So we were able to identify that, hey, they're at this place. So we knew exactly where to go to switch out the vehicles and then get the other vehicle towed. Next slide. So this gives you an idea. So when we talk about idle time, because, again, we want to make sure that we're being good good, responsible facilitators with our resources, especially our financial resources. So idle hours within those days. So one vehicle idled for 9 hours. That's something that we might want to go back and say, okay, where's this vehicle at? What is it doing on a regular basis? You know, is it something that's a vehicle that is at maybe employment site and we have several wheelchairs, and so it takes extra time to load the vehicle and the vehicle's idling while we are loading. So that just is a snapshot of what one of the graphs may look like. Next slide. So this is also a great piece of information that you can pull. So obviously we've blacked out the driver and where they were, but it'll tell you what the speed limit is and if they're speeding. So it doesn't look like on this one, we've had, you know, there are times that some of our drivers speed, and then that way we're able to quickly address the issue. We can reach out and say, you know, on this date at this time, this vehicle was gauged at going X amount of speed. The other thing with the GPS that we're currently using, one of the things that we recently found out is that we can set the maximum speed limit on them. And so if they go above that speed limit, there's a really annoying beeping that happens. And we just happened to find that out because somebody was not speeding, but they were on the freeway and they were going under the speed limit and it was beeping. So we had to manage that and reset that level so that it did meet the road expectations. But again, it's just another tool that we can use to make sure that you know, we're getting the best out of our gas mileage, our vehicles, and all of that. So next slide. Again, it also, you can create those reports. There's interactive maps, so we can pull it up if we're looking for something specific. And then again, this just kind of gives you an idea of where some of our vehicles were and which way they were going at any given time. Next slide. So we can also, again, like I said, creating those reports and why they're important. Next slide. And again, so we here at TCH, one of the things that we do is we do some trips that are outside of the city. So being able to see where the vehicles are, especially if there's an issue, a breakdown or something like that, we're able to reach out and find that vehicle so that this driver's not as stressed either. Next slide. Let's see. We've recently changed GPS systems. And so it's very similar to the one we were using, and we still get the same information that we were getting before. Sometimes I think we use it to its best ability. This is new, so we're still learning all of the aspects of it. Like I said, understanding that, hey, we can set that speed when you want it to notify that a driver is going too fast, was one of the new things that we learned. So there's a lot of ways to use it and use it effectively. Next slide. Outlook calendars. So we do utilize this as part of our scheduling with our vehicles. Next slide. So there's a variety of reasons to use this. One of the nice things is, especially with things like our admin car, because we're not necessarily taking support individuals in that vehicle, we can go into our calendar invite and request that vehicle. So it automatically goes on the calendar, and then you can see if it's available or not, if you're the one that wants to request that vehicle. It also helps because then as we're scheduling vehicles, then we have a board in the office that we utilize that everybody can look at, but we can say, okay, here's on the calendar in the next, this week, this is what's going on. We can put that stuff on the board so that others can see it. And then it's also in the calendar so that we're able to track where, when the vehicles have been requested. We also use paper as well for certain activities so that we know how many supported individuals are going, how many people are in wheelchairs, and those kinds of things. The next slide. So this is what ours looks like in terms of the vehicles. We do have individuals that we're taking to the doctors a lot. So you'll see that a lot of times the medical people that are taking our supported individuals, they know way in advance when they're going to need those vehicles. So they can go in and schedule those out quite far, requesting specific vehicles. That's not to say that the day of their appointment, we may have to move some vehicles around depending on what's going on with the rest of the fleet, but at least there's a vehicle reserved for them. And we know that trip is going to be happening on that day. Next slide. So the way that we've utilized our vehicles is we've got quite a varied fleet. Over the last couple of years, we've really taken a look at how we utilize our fleet. It used to be that we had all those big cutaways, and that's not so much cost effective anymore. We have a lot of individuals, about 58% of our group is individuals with some mobility issues. So we have the majority of our fleet is ADA. However, if we have some individuals, especially for like our medical appointments, and they're taking one person, a cutaway is not effective or efficient. So we have a few minivans with ramps, and those do get utilized a lot for the medical appointments. But we, in the last year, we also received some grant funds and we bought non-ADA vehicles. So they're just for individuals that are ambulatory. But sometimes we're taking one-on-one or maybe a small group of ambulatory individuals, and these are more efficient for that. And it also then leaves the ADA vehicles for those that need it. So really looking at how we utilize our vehicles. Also, we have an employment group that goes out to the west side of town. So taking a big cutaway with nobody in wheelchairs wasn't so efficient. So we were able to gain a Odyssey, Honda Odyssey, like a small minivan. And that's what they utilize now. One, it's new, it gets better gas mileage. And so it really helps to maintain and look at how we're using our financial resources again. Next slide. So again, we utilize this in that way that we can request reserve ahead of time. We can also put that there's a vehicle out of service if it's down for maintenance. Next slide. Talked about the admin car and how that's utilized. And it's really easy for those of us that need to use that car. We can know if it's available or not. We also can then track who's been driving pre and post trip. Next slide. So you'll see kind of on the next slide how we utilize some of the vehicles and how we manage to be able to schedule everybody going where they need to go. So next slide. So this gives you an idea. So Van 160 was going to a volunteer project with Midwest Food Bank. Then we had some doctor's appointments. And so you can see, I mean, on any given day with our fleets very big, like I said, you'll see that these vehicles are all over the place. And then again, it's a nice snapshot. If you pull it up and you're looking for a specific vehicle, you can say, where's Van 163? Oh, it's going to be gone from this time to this time. Next slide. Any questions?
I'm not seeing any in the chat. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and unmute and ask them.
I know that was kind of quick. Does anybody have any questions outside of that about fleets or management, or do you guys use a system that maybe we don't use that might that you find that you really like, it's beneficial, that you enjoy, it's got an easy interface, user-friendly?
I'll add to that. There was one that was very common out in Washington and Oregon, and it was VIA. And I think that was a really good one, especially for like a dial a ride, door to door kind of system. And the other one that one of our big transit system used was Spare. And they were able to use that for their fixed route, and their paratransit and their general dial-a-ride as well. And we were able to set up presentations from those companies. So if that's something that anyone is interested in, we could probably get you connected with them as well, or any other
Yeah, and
ones that you have.
have you ever had to react to your system going down with no ETA? um, I have not. I've not been familiar with that. So we did have some issues with our old GPS system. We weren't getting the service that we needed, and we were having some issues. So that's why we changed from that system to the current system. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. I think that's one of the reasons why we have some of the backup systems. Like if we have the GPS, we can use that one. We've got our board, so it's written out, but we also have the calendar invites. So we've got options, so it's not all, especially when you're trying to dispatch, so you have some idea of where everybody is. I guess that's how I would say, one of the ways that we would handle it. Those with like the smaller fleets, how do you currently manage your fleets? Are you looking for something new, or is it just easier to do it the way you're doing it? I'm just curious. Well, if you have any questions going forward, TCH is a mobility manager. And if you want more information about some of these different processes that we use or anything outside of that, like I said, we do have a large fleet as well, and we are all over the state. And so things like the GPS system's really, really critical for that, as well as some of those ticketing systems, because we have some of our satellite sites like Yuma, we don't go down and take their vehicles in for maintenance. They're responsible to do that, but then we're able to work with them to make sure that it's getting done. So yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, that was all the information that I had today.
Thank you so much, Dawn. I will go ahead and stop this recording. And just a reminder, if you would like a certificate for this, go ahead and send me an email. If you put your name and agency in the chat box, great. If not, don't worry about it. I will pull the participation list from Zoom, and that will have all of your information on it. So we will see you next time.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate your time.